Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance, and this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from anonymous daughter-in-law, and here's her story. First, I just want to start by thanking you, Ollie, for your channel, which helps survivors untangle their trauma webs to find validation, venting, and healing. I really appreciate your no-nonsense feedback and discernment with these twisted individuals. I am so angry in need to vent without looking irrational to people in my community or husband. I tried talking to my husband, but he always has excuses for his dad's abuse. To him, his dad is his best friend. That's creepy. I mean, I understand I have a really sour relationship with my family, but I just don't. I don't understand these men who are like best buddies with their dad. Like, to me, it's usually boomer worship. Like, I don't know how old you are. Maybe I'll find out throughout this. But this is a problem when I talk about at least my generation, Generation X, that they can't get their fucking parents out of their lives. Your husband would probably fit into that fucking category, that he thinks his dad is the coolest, greatest, can't do anything without asking his fucking dad's opinion on anything. Has your husband ever had a thought that wasn't his dad's first? Does your husband ever make a decision without considering first what his dad would say about it? That's the type I'm talking about. Because if the answer is no, okay, you're not married to your husband. You're married to his father, and all your husband is, if he's Gen X like me, if you're about my age, I don't know, kind of a victim of boomer worship. Unfortunately, I can't expose the narc in our community because he has decades of his outstanding all-American citizen family man image, and no one would believe me. I would just be labeled the crazy, ungrateful daughter-in-law. My story starts with learning about NPD in the beginning of 2019 after being traumatized by the gross neglect of my mother-in-law, who is slowly dying of Alzheimer's. So they must be baby boomers then, or close to it. Must be boomers. She was the stellar wife, mother, beloved public school, Sunday school teacher, and codependent slave hidden in plain sight. My husband and I would run into her former students and colleagues randomly that sing her praises. Therefore, I just couldn't understand why my father-in-law, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, and my tag-along husband in denial could be blatantly callous to their invalid mother. None of them are poor, plus she has a decent pension and there was no financial hardship preventing them from getting her tender loving care and medical attention she needed. They just do not care because it's not happening to them. Typical narcs. They want money. They know, listen, this is a money grab. It's a money grab. Because they know how much money hospice care and all that type of invalid care sucks up. They figure she's got Alzheimer's, she won't even know. My husband told me she's already dead. However, it sounded like he was quoting his father's sick rationalization because he did not say it with malice, but as a matter of fact, because he trusts his father blindly. Of course he does. My husband has been groomed and brainwashed for narc supply to praise and worship his father and golden child big brother. My husband is their mascot and sings their praises, how impressive this or that, and how wicked smart they are. I smell bullshit. I just know these two are insecure assholes and the father is a major con artist. I told my husband, you are just as intelligent and as talented as they are, except you are gullible because they manipulate your emotions and you are loyal to them to a fault. Sounds like boomer worship to me. This all sounds like typical, and whether you guys are Gen Xers or millennials, and I'm going to probably have to lean to that you guys are Gen Xers, just how this is written. After much heart searching and prayer for clarification, glory to God, about their odd behaviors, I discovered through research and listening to multiple survivors that my father is a covert, malignant, sadistic narcissist, and my brother-in-law is an overt, cerebral narcissist. My sister-in-law is a vulnerable narcissist, and my husband is a blind, naive, flying monkey enabler. My father-in-law has been able to live decades performing his good, outstanding citizen persona. My brother-in-law is an insecure bigot and snob that always needs to put down people in order to feel good about himself. My sister-in-law has 2 prestigious professional degrees but no career legacy. Sounds like typical Gen Xers. A lot of education. Sounds like typical Gen Xers raised by narcissistic boomers. Self-entitlement, nothing really behind it, meaningless degrees, okay, and none of them could do anything without the approval of their boomer parents, of boomer daddy. Sounds typical. I've brought these type of Gen Xers and boomer relationship up in the past. It's these Gen Xers who cannot make a fucking decision without thinking about how it's going to affect their father or their mother, what their opinion is. Get your fucking parents out of your lives. Even if you're millennials, get them out of your lives. After much heart searching and prayer for clarification, glory to God, about their odd behaviors, I've discovered through research and listening. Okay, I'm sorry, I already read that one. This is because I'm sorry. My sister-in-law has 2 prestigious professional degrees but no career legacy. This is because she is incapable of being a team player or dealing with the public. Yet she'll make conceited remarks about what a superstar she is. I'm praying that my husband will wake up before these 2 narcs steal his inheritance. Anyway, back to the nuclear narc bomb story. Inheritance. There it is. That's why his mother's not being taken care of, because they're worried about their inheritance. My in-laws are in their 80s and have been married for 50 plus years. So they're either boomers or just barely, or close enough, they're boomers. They only have 2 sons and 2 grandchildren. One young lady in her 20s and my 6-year-old son. My husband is 52 and I'm 42. You're Gen Xers. We've been married for 8 years. I first noticed something was very odd when we took a summer trip in 2016 to visit my in-laws' relatives and show off my toddler son to them. At the airport, my father-in-law forgot my mother-in-law's identification. TSA let her fly because her name was on the checkbook and medications. Moreover, she was a mess, hair, nasty, dirty nails, and stunk, poor woman. She was able to walk, follow us, but would talk in circles. She was also incontinent, so she would wet the bed every night. On this trip, the shit hit the fan because her cousins confronted my father-in-law about his abuse and straight out told him that neglect is not love. They made him wash and change her sheets, something he was not accustomed to doing. Domestic chores are beneath him. They also suggested that he would make sure she wore 2 diapers at night to protect the mattress, which he resented. How dare these people tell him what to do? Typical boomers. Typical boomers. Okay, and you're married to boomer worship. You're married to boomer worship. I was also informed that my father-in-law failed to mention to their cousins that the 3 of us were also visiting them. This is when I learned of the narc's entitlement to breach boundaries and just show up unannounced because in their mind they are special and deserve special privileges. Moreover, I also learned of the narc's failure to view members of their family as separate entities rather than their spouse and children or just extensions of themselves. This is all boomer logic. This is all boomer logic right here. This is why he didn't tell our host that the 3 of us were also visiting. He views my husband and son as extensions of himself, and I'm just the caretaker. He has started to call me by my maiden name, so it's safe to assume I'm not family. Well, once the relatives pointed out his gross negligence, the narc song and dance began. He claimed not to mind taking care of her since she took care of him for decades. He even kissed her on the cheek, fronting affection, something uncharacteristic because he does not even know how to show physical affection to my son. I finally spoke up and said, it's not about you, it's about her hygiene and grooming. Her cousins took her to the shower, salon, and washed all her clothes because they smelled like urine. These cousins were appalled and said they did not understand these two stooges, my father-in-law and husband. They did not see any love for their own wife and mother. They emailed my brother-in-law of the horror, since my husband just agrees with the nonsense his father says. That same year, 2016, in the fall, my husband's son and I, along with my in-laws, take another trip to visit my brother-in-law, sister-in-law, and narc-in-training young adult niece. Side note, the niece was homeschooled and her parents purchased the house next door for her to live and boss roommates around. Perfect narc training school. Plus, now I know she uses her boyfriends for supply. She does not have close girlfriends. Whatever friends she has, she treats them as her employees, and she is always conferring with her parents about her relationships, which is creepy. Carrying on that that boomer legacy, huh? Get your fucking parents out of your life. Boomer legacy. Jesus Christ. Ugh. Get your fucking parents out of your lives. The whole family. This is how this is the boomer legacy, man. This is what they gave us. Back to this visit. They just have their powwow, and I sit back and observe the narc script. They invalidate the cousins, calling them difficult and a bunch of gossips. They finally decide my mother-in-law needs home assistance and hire some ladies to come in daily for company, bathing, feeding, and toileting. That winter, he decides that they are going to the tropics, something they like to do annually. He hires help during the day because I opted not to go with them. My husband was in shock because I made it perfectly clear that I was not interested in being the nurse, maid, caretaker, and only adult with these people. A little history, the previous winter is when her incontinence started and she made a mess of the floor in the hallway and bathroom. Plus, due to her dementia, she refused to take a shower. I had no choice but to clean, wash, and disinfect since she was incoherent. The poor woman had feces all over her hands and nails, but refused to wash and smoked her cigarettes instead. This winter, my husband accompanied them, and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law met them in the tropics for about a week. I stayed home with my son, content. It was a nice vacation away from these weirdos. My in-law stayed longer, and this is when he left her alone, let her fall, and she had stitches on her forehead. She also suffered a fractured vertebrae in her neck, but this did not come to light until months later. Are you sure she fell? Are you sure she fell and they didn't abuse her? Because these are the types that will abuse, because they don't want to be taking care of her. They don't want to be taken care of. So it wouldn't surprise me if they actually did something to her. Typical narc, he blamed her for not listening to him, to stay put and not reading the watch your step sign. He repeated this stupid excuse to the nurses for medical staffs for months. He did it. 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 He got mad and pushed her down, got mad and hit her. He did it. He did it. That's why he's trying to sell it. He did it. I know these types. They lash out. They're big boomer man babies. Big boomer babies. And when they don't get their way and something inconveniences them, okay, like a child or a pet or somebody who doesn't know any better with dementia, they lash out. He did it. What a complete jerk. She has Alzheimer's and is totally dependent on other adults for her well-being. What sort of husband? This is when I learned how responsibility hurts the narcissist's feelings and they hate accountability, right? And they will lash out violently. Fast forward, the seniors are back home and I'm visiting their house, so I start chatting with one of the caretakers. She starts asking me valid questions such as, why does this poor woman have no bed? Why does he let her sleep on the sofa in the den, fall off onto the floor, and sleep in her feces? Why does he refuse to take her to the bathroom and change her and pull her up after the caretaker leaves? Here's what you do here. Okay, here's what you do. If this is what's going on, you yourself call Adult Protective Services. You yourself call Adult Protective Services anonymously, and you tell them this is what's going on. And you have them, because that's what I did to my grandmother when she was hoarded out the house. And no. They will show up. They will show up. They're doing this to save their money. They're cheaping out every way they can to save money for the inheritance so they don't have to spend it on her. Fuck them. Fuck them. Force their hand. Call Adult Protective Services. He also locks himself in the first floor master bedroom, blocking the only shower accessible for her all day. He refuses to buy groceries to feed her, but will buy his junk food and snacks for her. He also resents when the caretakers show her any affection. Say what? I do a little investigating and interview the other caretakers, and they attest to all his physically abusive behaviors. I told them. I told you it was him who did it. Typical narc, denying basic human rights to sleep, food, hygiene, affection, and comfort. A complete nightmare. When confronted, he lies to us, and the caretaker is passive-aggressive all the way. When confronted, he lies to us, the caretakers, and is passive-aggressive all the way. I made the decision to buy her a comfy lazy boy chair so she can snooze there and watch TV, which I regret because he would leave her confined to that chair all night until the caretakers arrived the next morning. One time the caretaker found her slipping from the chair completely uncomfortable, scared and confused. He told the caretaker that she was making noises all night. This means she was calling for help all night and he ignored her. Nonetheless, he refused to get out of bed for the den, even though there were extra beds upstairs. He was also resentful that I spent $2,000 on that chair without consulting him or getting his approval. Typical narc logic. Well, that's $2,000 you could have spent on him. It's boomer logic. If it's not my own, typical narc logic, if it's not for my own benefit, the gift is too expensive and a waste of time and money. Exactly, that's what I told you. That's boomerism. That's boomerism 101, man. Presently, he goes in the den, turns on the TV, sits on her chair, smokes cigars, calls people on the phone, eats a snack, tortures his wife, who's supposed to be sleeping. We confronted him, and even though the air filter in her room is yellow with nicotine, he denies hanging out there all night. Moreover, he says he likes to check on his wife at night to make sure she's still breathing. This is narc talk for, are you dead yet? Yup. She falls again. He hits her again because her family does not pay attention or cares for her well-being. However, this time it was in a public shopping center and the ambulance took her to shock trauma. Okay. She suffers a bruised brain and fractured vertebrae in the neck, which takes too long to heal because it's an old injury from fall number 1 in the tropics. He is very disrespectful to the nurses and doctors, dodging their calls and very nonchalant about her injuries. He said, so what? She's all banged up. He is adamant that he wants her home and not in the hospital to die because hospitals cost money. Hospitals cost money. This is all narc talk for I want to control the abuse of my wife, kill her myself, and I don't appreciate anyone trying to take care for her. All I want is power and attention. Thanks. And the money. He doesn't want the money wasted in the hospital. Doesn't matter if she's cut. They're still going to cost money. A few nights in the hospital, she's back home. However, she suffers a blood clot and the caretaker calls me because he is sleeping. And frankly, she is convinced he has made it clear he does not care about his wife and she does not trust his judgment. Oh, a little clarification. He likes to stay up all night reading newspapers and magazines, talking on the phone, smoking or watching movies. He claims the silence, peacefulness, and darkness help him think better. Then he sleeps all day until late afternoon when he goes out for coffee and a donut. I've come to the conclusion that this behavior makes him feel special because he's not like the ordinary people that work during the day and sleep at night. What do you think? I think it just makes it easier to avoid responsibility for her. That's what I think. If he's awake when she's primarily asleep at night, he don't have to deal with her. If he's out of the house during the day, he don't have to deal with her. If he's asleep during the day when she's awake and the caretakers are there, he don't have to deal with her. Back to the blood-clotted leg. My husband and I, along with the caretaker, take her to the emergency room, and there they insert a device to help break up the clot. She gets hospitalized. I told him that she needs a bed. How does your husband lets her not sleep in a bed? He's just a big a pile of shit as his father is. He really is. If he can do that to his mother, and his father can do that to his wife, and he idolizes his father, what do you think your husband will do to you if you ever become incapacitated? He's giving you the blueprint of what your future could be here. I told him that she needs a bed. He sleeps in a bed. How come she can't die with dignity? He just looked at me totally perplexed. In front of him, I asked the nurse for a hospital bed, social worker, and a nurse to come help us at the house once she is discharged. Of course, this must have caused a major narcissistic injury, but I did not care about his feelings or reactions anymore. My mother-in-law did not deserve such cruelty. He resented the physical therapist, the nurse, and me for caring enough for his wife, something he was expected to be doing. He fought us on the bed that it was cumbersome and ugly for the den. At this point, I wanted to punch him in the face. My husband had to call and order the bed, and it took a lot longer because the narcs delay tactics. In the interim, I had my brothers help me take out the sofa from the den and move one of the upstairs beds down into the den so she could get a proper rest and sleep during her convalescence. Then finally the hospital position bed and air mattress to prevent ulcers arrived. By the way, it's a small twin-sized bed because she is a petite person. Let's talk about the other narcs in this family that I have to contend with. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law tried to gaslight and validate my observations about the chaos immediately, even though I sent them pictures of the horrible abuse of the mother. It's a neglect, not abuse. He's always been careless. He's not going to change. He does not have a mental illness. He's just old. This all makes us look bad. She has a narc rage episode when I said there are different levels of abuse. Her eyes almost popped out. I've come to the conclusion that they are assholes, so I stopped sharing any information with them. These weirdos were abusive and cruel to themselves. How can I possibly expect them to be kind and loving to their mother? They drive used cars up and down the East Coast without heating or air conditioning. Yet they have an air purifier, dehumidifier inside their main residence, and then get into their cars and breathe toxic fumes, pollution, pollen, and suffer from the elements. No wonder they suffer from allergies and sinus infections. Oh, and they are always on some fad, self-righteous, torturous diet. They use food as another type of sick control power trip mechanism. They also self-medicate with caffeine, Tabasco, and whiskey and supplements. They are functional alcoholics because they take shots of whiskey all throughout the day. Now I understand why one of my husband's aunts said I was so patient and why her kids avoid these weirdos like the plague. The narc patriarch tried so hard to punish me for the injuries to his putrid ego during the Christmas holidays. He and his narc son and wife, who came up to visit us, managed to dupe my husband to ditch me for my December birthday to go to their favorite restaurant. I was invited. It's my birthday and you choose the restaurant? Screw all you. But since I knew their intentions to rob me of my joy, I didn't go. I stayed home with my kid. However, my husband had made plans for his niece to babysit our son that coming Friday, so we could spend the night at a casino hotel and have a double date with my best friend and her husband, something we like to do annually. Through all this crap, I maintained my poker face and did not let them know how I really felt. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction. My husband also wanted to take his brother and sister-in-law to a new rooftop gourmet expensive restaurant at the Four Seasons that I wanted to try for my birthday. I told him absolutely not with those disrespectful ingrates, and I don't want to celebrate my birthday with them. I say ingrates because they always complain about the food when they don't even pay for it. I confronted my husband about his abusive family and told him that this would be the first and last time that I would let them pull these disrespectful stunts. Plus, his mother gave birth to him and his father is a goof. I am the one signed up to be with him in old age. Are they going to live with him and clean his ass if I divorce him? I think not. Subsequently, I did not cancel Christmas Eve dinner because I had invited my family of origin to spend time with us, and it is our little family tradition. However, since I knew the in-laws decided to give the help the day off on Christmas and plan for me to take care of Grandma, I called out sick. I skipped Christmas Day at Uncle's, I skipped Christmas Day at Uncle at Uncle So-and-so's with these narc freaks. There you go. You want to be disrespectful and invalidating? Take care of Grandma by yourselves, since you are all smarter and superior to me anyway. They also tried this stunt for Thanksgiving to save money and not pay the help overtime, but I refuse to take care of Grandma. If they can enjoy their holiday, why do I have to be the slave? No, we live 5 minutes from my in-laws' house, and when the help's out, I am on call to take care of her, so I feel entitled to enjoy my holidays without being forced to work for their sadistic pleasure. Remember, narcs love to ruin your special days of the year for supply. Spray raid on these roaches and enjoy your life. How the narc loves to lie to himself to feel superior, avoid being uncomfortable or confrontation. These are a few examples. Lie number 1, he claims he's not that old. Lie number 2, he refuses to get a handicap sticker tag for his car because no one is handicapped. What about your wife? Lie number 3, he's having incontinence issues but refuses to wear the pull-ups because those episodes are just accidents. The horror, let him shit his pit. Let him. Let the fucking boomer sit in his own shit. Let him. The horror, his granddaughter was forced to clean all his excrement from the car, hallway, and bathroom in front of her boyfriend. The couple came to visit for the first time, and he pulls this stunt, laughing all the way. I kid you not, he literally laughed with sadistic pleasure as he recounts the incident to my husband. I told my husband, if he does this in front of me, I'm leaving. I will not clean that mess and tolerate his sadistic abuse. Lie number 4 in 2 parts. Part 1, he announces to us that Christmas is not his favorite holiday. He prefers Easter. This is one of his lies used as a band-aid to feel better, since we're going away to the tropics to be with my aunt's uncle's cousins this Christmas to celebrate with normal people who know what love is. Part 2, he also makes it a point to lie to us about the building where they normally stay in the tropics, how it's under construction, so they can't go this year. He is obviously very jealous that we will not be around this Christmas, and he will not be the center of attention. Good riddance. I don't want to be dodging bullets from all these narcs during the holiday. Their backhanded compliments and their obnoxious superiority complexes. I want to cut loose and be myself without always being on the defenses with a gray rock indifferent stoic shield. My brother and sister-in-law are very jealous, insecure people, since we had the son and they had the daughter. Moreover, my husband and I at our business also make a lot more money than they do and haven't lost as much in our investments. She's also made an obnoxious comment about me and my fairy tale house. She's always noticing my clothes and jewelry. Oh, how it must drive her mad that I barely have gray hairs and I'm in my early 40s, because she's always talking about my dark hair. She's in her late 50s and must be jealous of my youthful looks. In their twisted logic, we shame them for being happy and blessed. Relationships are not based on competition. Stupid narcs are and toxic people. You want to be happy, live and let live. But they can't. These are people immersed in boomer logic. It's all about, I'm better than you. You got to understand about boomers. It's all about, I'm better than you. And the problem is, all the Gen Xers, all the children, like your husband in the family, believe it. And your husband's a victim of boomer worship. Boomer worship. They become irate when you are content in doing well. These people are incorrigible, so they will always be miserable. Welcome to the Narc Harem Garage. My father-in-law insists on having a party to honor his wife and invites mostly his fans and her cousins. The cousins were no-shows. I wonder why. There he holds court. He literally loves to give speeches standing up while we are all seated as his audience. They love a lecture. Boomers love a lecture. They love a fucking lecture, don't they? But, moreover, one of his aunts stands up and praises him publicly on how proud she is of his accomplishments. Their mutual friends are praising him for being so nice by having a party to honor his sick wife. It's all nauseating to me because I know what is really going on. He's feeding off the admiration, adulation, attention from these unsuspecting people whom are part of his narc harem. Yep, that's how it works. That's how it works. That's my father. That's what supplies my father. All that admiration, adulation, attention of being a great fucking guy. He don't give a fuck. Note, around this same time, his wife had conjunctivitis for months and refused to take her to the doctor, but he will have a party to honor her. I smell bullshit. I had to basically kidnap her and take her to the primary care doctor to get the eye drops for the infection. By the way, he has these parties every 2 or 3 months to survive. He needs narc supply like we need sleep, air, water, and food to live. It's really a pathetic existence. Kind of like my parents' shore parties. They had to have these parties to be the center of attention. They had to. Thanks to survivors and coaches that we know about NPD, I've sat back and observed all the stages in manipulation, tactics, triangulation, pathological lies, etc. Their behavior is predictable and comical once you are familiar with their disorder. He is also very sadistic, and his cover story is that he has a sadistic sense of humor. Thankfully, I can now decide. Yeah. It's always funny to the boomer. It's always a fucking joke to a boomer. Unfortunately, for a boomer, they can only be funny at somebody else's expense. Okay? And they're not very good about taking humor about themselves. Thankfully, I can now decipher all those strange stories in his repertoire, which he thinks are funny jokes, as his sadistic trophies that bring him pleasure. One time we were in the den watching Wheel of Fortune, and he openly admitted that he likes when game show contestants lose their winnings. Even though he knows it's wrong, he still finds it funny. Most narcs are compulsive talkers and will repeat their script. They live in a time capsule, and their glory stories are not only weird monologues, but boring. Yep, thanks, boomer. That's a boomer. You're just describing boomers. Like, really, you're just ragging on boomers now. Both my father-in-law and brother-in-law are compulsive talkers, and I tell my husband I don't want to sit there and be their audience. I try to skip meeting with these fools and waste my time with their unedifying rhetoric. My sister-in-law is not a compulsive talker. However, once in a while, she'll let out some hoity comment. I'm not a compulsive talker, and like my husband like my husband likes to point out, most people in my family are not talkers. I think because most of my family is normal, they self-validate and they are respectful. They have empathy and they are not lonely or miserable. Sometimes I share some wisdom or common sense with them, and they look at me like I have multiple heads. It's comical. In their alternate reality, I'm a simple, stupid woman because I don't have multiple graduate degrees and my family of origin is not affluent or politically powerful. Basically, I've been surviving by limited contact and gray rock indifference. My favorite saying is no and watching the 80-year-old senior tantrums. I also said no to my sis and brother-in-law when they were expecting us to bring dinner to them one night, and the caretaker told me they blew a gasket. Senior Narc also tries to insult or annoy me in covert, insidious forms, but I always say thank you and look for a positive spin, and his face of disgust and disappointment are awesome. The only reasons I stay limited contact is because I'm the only one who has empathy for my mother-in-law, and I don't want to traumatize my son by suddenly going no contact divorce with these people. My son is a source of supply for them, and he has not seen the monsters behind these nice masks. Although I plan to slowly disengage and pull away so I don't poison my son with their toxicity. Plus, I don't want to turn a blind eye to the abuse of an invalid. Hopefully, Senior Narc will die soon, and my narc bro and sis will retire to Europe. Since they are such snobs and think they have blue blood and shit golden nuggets, dummies, American wannabe elites are not received warmly by the French. This is my conclusion. You are all correct, and you all correct me if I'm wrong. My covert malignant narc's mask did not fall off until his main source of perfect supply got sick. No, it was always been off. See, I don't know if you actually knew your mother-in-law when she was healthy or not. Okay, but you don't know what, because you did get married later on. You met your husband later on. You don't know what these people were like before she got sick. She was his personal assistant, honest, programmable, hardworking horse, codependent, slave, and foil. In the past, I had seen him be a moody, mean, and tease her, but since we humans are not perfect, I did not suspect decades of emotional narc abuse. However, now that I know about MPD, all those strange stories she told me about how he abandoned her when she slipped and fell, or when traveling abroad makes sense. He said, laughing, like it is funny that she embarrassed him by slipping and he saw the danger and he was preserving his life. So he hid and left her completely exposed. Typical narc. It's all about their false perfect image and they're total cowards. He worked in politics, a glorified chief of staff, so he got all his macho power narc supply from his career bosses, colleagues, and staff. I've known a couple political chiefs of staffs. Okay, and it is a very ballsy type position. It was when his wife lost her faculties, became stoic, and needed more attention than him that his mask slipped and the abuse escalated to physical abuse. What do you think? I probably was always physically abusive. Okay, listen, these boomers have been the same way the entire time. He tells lie after lie after lie after lie. That's nothing new. Everything about them is a lie, and they can change the lie on a dime. Assume he's always been like this. Your husband is a fucking baby boomer ball washer. That's what he is. He's a baby boomer ball washer. And his opinion, or it's his recollection of growing up, is completely invalidated. Why? Because he's impressed by baby boomers. Baby boomer ball washers. That's your husband. That's who you're going to have taking care of you when you're older, in your later years. You feel comfortable growing old with this guy? I wouldn't. Based on how he treats his mother, how he idolizes his father, how his father treats him. What does that say for you? You're married to a baby boomer ball washer. Sit there and wash his balls. This life experience has taught me that we must forgive the abusers for our own sakes to avoid the poison of spiritual bitterness, which manifests itself through physical health problems, and your forgiveness does not require reconciliation. I am a follower of Christ, and scriptures clearly warns us to avoid these evildoers. 2 Timothy 3:19, love yourself, stay no contact, and strong survivors. Baby boomer ball washers follow boomer logic. Is that what you're comfortable growing old with? You can't believe anything that they tell you about anything because they're liars. Everything about them is great. It's the greatest thing ever. Everything they've done is the greatest thing. It's all wonderful. It's all perfect. It's all, we're better than you. And there's your husband shining up his nutsack. Slathered. Baby boomer ball washers follow boomer logic. Deadly. Is that what you want to? Is that what you want to grow old with? So, ask yourself that. And I hope that helps. Thank you so much, anonymous daughter-in-law, for your contribution and story. It was really well written. I appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comments section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, I have a private video made, or you just like to make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been The Narcissistic Resistance. Take care.